Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today we're going to make this adorable planner insert / notebook that can be used as a bullet journal, sketchbook, or both. I'm even going to show you how to make the adorable planner charms and clips. I wanted something compact that could fit in my larger planner pockets, but also be durable enough to take with me on the go to jot down ideas or sketches. I wanted a fun, modern, summery look, so I went to Graphic Stock to find some fun digital supplies to use. Graphic Stock is sponsoring today's tutorial and offering my viewers a free 7-day subscription so you can start downloading the cute supplies I use today. Graphic Stock has the largest unlimited download library of graphics, photos, vectors, and illustrations. They are the first place I look when I need a pretty background for a video, newsletter, or my website, or if I'm looking for a royalty-free reference photo to paint. You get access to unlimited downloads of 350,000 graphics, photos, vectors, and more with the Graphic Stock subscription. And you have 7 days to explore the site and try it for free to see if it will be useful to you. Please visit graphicstock.com/YouTube or simply click the link in the video description to start downloading today. We're going to start off by making some shrink plastic clips and charms, and here are a couple clips that I made, and I'm just going to put this put it on the back of this paper here so you can see. I have one made from matte shrink plastic, one made from clear shrink plastic, and then I've got a charm made from clear shrink plastic because I really think the clear, because you can see through it, doesn't look as nice on a clip because you see the back of the clip. So if you wanted to use the clear stuff on a clip, you might want to put a couple die cut leaves or something in there just to kind of block it, or maybe a little bit of scrapbook paper or cardstock or something. So I got this idea because I actually thought I had inkjet shrink plastic, which you can buy, but I didn't have any. So I thought, you know, I really love this design that I printed for the cover of my journal. So I thought, well, wouldn't it be cool if I could use one of these flowers and make some little charms with them? So these are the shrink films that I have. This one is what we're going to use, this Graphics Matte, but I also wanted to show you the clear and the black. Now, anytime you're using a really shiny shrink film, you're going to want to gently sand it with a very fine grit sandpaper. So I'm just going to show you. This is the clear. This is like 7 sheets of it, so you can see how clear it is. And this is that same stuff that I sanded just to and give it a little tooth for your ink to stick. I was using alcohol markers, so even though they're pretty much permanent on everything, they were not drying on the shrink film, so I did that just to make it work a little bit easier. I wanted to make sure I had plenty of color. Now, things are going to be darker when they dry, so just keep that in mind. And I think I'm going to make a yellow clip here, so I'm going to start off with a light yellow marker, and I am just going to cover this whole area with the marker. Now, I also want to remind you that if you do decide you want a charm as opposed to a clip, then you're going to want to punch the hole before you shrink it. Shrinking it is so much fun, and I used to think you had to do it in the oven because that's what the package suggests, but I actually realized that you can do it with the heat tool, and it's great if you don't want to make a bunch of them, you just want to make one at a time. So what I like about this matte shrink film and the clear shrink film is that I can see through, so I can easily just look and go through and just trace over my lines here. And you know, you could make, you could also just use, if you had like really giant punches, you could punch out some big shapes and just maybe dab it with your different alcohol markers and get a really cool marbled effect. But I like this too because you can totally control what you're doing, and you could enlarge your design if you wanted to make a bigger shrink charm, because this is going to shrink down to the size of those other charms I just showed you. So it's kind of weird at first to account for that. But I think it makes the perfect planner size embellishments. And you get to make them match whatever other papers and embellishments you're using. I love this paper from Graphic Stock. I think it's just so elegant, but also kind of fun and quirky at the same time. And you can use more than 2 colors, but I'm just going to keep it simple today so I can kind of reflect the colors that are in that pattern paper that I'm using. So then what you want to do is just simply trim this out with whatever scissors you usually use for crafting. It cuts really easily. It's oh gosh, it's thinner than I would say a milk jug, so but it's very similar. Now, if you can't find shrink plastic and you're looking through your recycling bin, if you find plastic with a number 6 recycling code on it, you can use that. I find that a lot of times yogurt cups have that type of plastic, especially the really thin-walled ones. So just kind of keep your eye open. Sometimes like the clear plastic containers that salad and strawberries come in have that number 6 code. and that will work just fine. I would test it really quickly before you do like any like crazy involved project that you're going to spend a lot of time on it, just to make sure that it does shrink up and you have the right kind. But that's kind of cool too if you can find like a piece of it that's large enough. So that's what you have. Now what you're going to want to do, you can bake it in the oven, but like I said, I just prefer this method because it's so easy. Grab like a silicone mat or some other sort of baking sheet, something that's like, or a silicone pan, something that's non-stick, and you can either use a needle tool, or I really prefer these silicone tipped tools because it's not going to stick as this shrinks. And then we're going to heat it up, and I'm going to let the video roll as we do this so you know how long it takes. It's a very quick process, but I want you to kind of do this with me so you don't freak out when this happens. So it's going to shrivel up, and it's probably going to freak you out a little bit because it doesn't seem like it's going to flatten back out again. It does like to run away from you. But this, so having a little tool like this keeps it from running away. And I like having the silicone one because sometimes the metal will stick. If it runs away from you, you can just kind of shut your heat gun on, grab it again, and then get in there and shrink it. So it's going to shrink down to about 1/3 of its size, and the color's going to get more intense. And then it's going to start to flatten back out again. And as it flattens out, what I like to do is actually flip it over. Just make sure your craft mat is fairly clean where you're working. And blast it from the back. And then what I like to do is have like a stamp block or a block of wood, something flat nearby that I can just kind of stamp it down on top of it to flatten it. I could probably even use this ruler here. You just don't want to burn yourself, so make sure it's thick enough that you're not going to burn yourself. And then you've got your lovely flat charm. Now this is does have, I would say, kind of like a satin sheen to it. You might have some shiny spots. You could probably even just blast it real quick to even out the sheen on there, but it depends. If you're using colored pencils or markers, you could get a slightly different sheen. In the packaging will tell you what you can use. Generally, if it's kind of matte, you can use your colored pencils on it. Alcohol pens, any sort of permanent heat set ink will work. If you use a regular like dye-based ink, it might just smear off on you, so that's not the best idea. Now, if you want to turn this into a charm, all you need is a paper clip and some glue. I thought this yellow paper clip was really cute, as opposed to the silver ones that I was just using, so I'm just going to give it a little dollop on each little prong there. You don't need a lot. And then I'm just going to press this in. And I'm using hot glue, but if you wanted, you could use something that's a little bit more durable, like an E6000. I think that would work just fine, but since it is a plastic, I find the hot glue bond's pretty good. I mean, your planner's not going to get a ton of wear and tear, but if you find it pops off after a while, then you could super glue it, super glue right to that hot glue, so that way everything will marry nice and close. But that is how you do the clips. And of course, if you wanted to make it into a charm, then you would simply punch your hole on the charm before you shrunk it. Now look at the size of that hole. It's probably about 1/8 of an inch. I used this punch here, which is probably, it's bigger than 1/4 of an inch. It's a little bit bigger than a standard office size punch. You can use a standard office size punch. Oh, that's how big it is right there. And that's what it shrinks down to, just to give you a little bit of reference. You know, and that would give you room to put wire or thread through. So just keep that in mind if you are making the charms. So now let's move along to the book. Now, I'm not sure if you can hear it or not in the background, but I actually have my laminator hot and ready to go so that when we get to that stage, we can do it. So what I've done is printed this same, this background, which I used as my inspiration for my clips. I traced one of the flowers on there onto a piece of cardstock. And I want to make a booklet that is about 6 inches high by 4.5 inches wide. And I want that because my planner here that you've seen me make in other videos and update and whatnot, I made these little pockets where I keep like my checkbook and my payment stubs, my tax stubs that I have to send back to the IRS with my quarterly tax payments. Pretty much everything in here, and this stays at home. I slip my daily planner inside one of these pockets when I'm home, and I want to just have kind of like a journal that can be like a sketchbook, to-do list, bullet journal, that sort of thing that I can slide into one of those pockets and take with me. So that's what I am going to do today. So I took some 9x12 drawing paper and I cut it in half, and I like this paper because it's just an inexpensive white sulfite paper, but I can do light watercolor washes in it, I can write on it, it's just all purpose and cheap enough to use for to-do lists even. So I'm going to set that aside for now, and what I want to do is actually cut this down, and I'm going to trim it, and then I'm going to cut it to size. So I'm going to want this to be a little bit bigger than my than the paper that I'm going to be putting in here. So, and I need to account for a spine. So I'm just first going to start by trimming off one edge. You can do this on a paper trimmer very easily. I just want to get my edges that I know are straight cut, because there's kind of some edges on this design that makes it a little easier to trim, so that's what I'm doing right here. And this would be quicker and easier on a paper trimmer, but I wanted to have it where you could see it. Okay, so now let's see. I want this to be, so 4.5 times 2 is 9 inches. I'd really like this to be about 9.5 inches wide, which it looks like that's just about what it's going to be here. Perfect. I didn't even plan that. Isn't that good planning? But that's all right. We could always trim our paper more, or just had a little edge on there, or done a little washi tape embellishing. Now I think I want to make it 6 inches high. So I am going to, I don't want to cut off too much of that flower. So I think what I'll do is trim it here, and then trim like 1/2 inch off on the other side. So I'm using the squaring feature of this scoring board to help me here. Again, easier on a paper trimmer. And then I can just kind of square this, make sure that it's square by the grids on the mat, which I like to do a little bit better because I just trust a little bit more than butting it up against there. So I have one end at 2. I don't like to go right up to the edge usually on a cutting mat. I kind of use the grid in the middle. Alright, so I'm going to trim that. There we go. Alright, so I need to have a little bit of room for the spine. I'm going to score it well, you know, I should probably laminate it first and then score it. So I'm going to grab a laminating pocket and show you how I do that. Here I have a 9x12 laminating pocket, and sometimes if I'm doing something smaller, I will try to coordinate it with another thing I need to laminate and do a couple things at once. And sometimes if I don't have anything else I want to laminate, I will simply just trim my pocket down and save that for something else. So, you know, I just try to keep one side hinged. That's a way to conserve supplies. But for this, I think I'm actually going to go ahead and use the entire lamination. And you know, another thing we can do is actually round the corners, and I'm just trying to decide whether I want to do that or not. Let me think a second. Okay, I did decide that I want to round the corners on here, and if you round the corners on your cover, you're going to need to round the corners on your pages as well, so keep that in mind. Since I have this tool here, it's called a corner chomper. It's a heavy-duty corner rounder. I can do that several pages at a time while I'm doing my book, so I just wanted to let you know that, because if you're doing it with a little scrapbooking one, it's going to be kind of a chore to do this to all of your pages. But on the upside, when you do this, it does make your paper, your little journal, it saves on wear and tear. So I just wanted to put both options out there, and you can do whatever is right for you, and using whatever supplies you already have. There we go. So I'm going to feed this through my laminator with a fold side first, and this is my laminator here. It's all hot and ready to go, and it will just take a couple minutes. Now I'm thinking I probably should have had this a little bit closer to one edge because the lamination film did bend a little bit. I've never had that happen before, but it doesn't really matter because I'm going to trim that off, and I'm just going to, you know, it might be a little, you know, rough looking there, but I think I can trim it close enough but it's not going to bother anything. I like to leave enough space on the edge to make sure that it's sealed really well. But just keep in mind that can be kind of sharp, so if you find that it's sharp, you can trim it flush with the paper and then edge it with a little washi tape or, you know, fancy pattern duct tape or something. Because, you know, if you have little kids that are always kind of, you know, playing with your stuff, you want to make sure they're not going to get, you know, a paper cut on it, and that lamination film can get a little sharp after you've cut it. So just kind of keep that in mind. Just want to get off that wrinkly edge. That's so strange, but I think it might be because I didn't put the off-feed tray on my machine as well. So once you have that, we're going to do some scoring on the scoring board. You can use any scoring board you like. I happen to have a ScorePal and I'm very happy with it, but again, you use whatever you like. So you want to always score on the front side of whatever you're working with. I apologize for the glare. That's kind of, I'm going to scoosh it down, maybe that will help. And I want to score, because this is going to be 4.5 inches, I want to score 4.5 inches from each side. So I'm going to score, I might go actually a little bit, I'm going to go 1/8 of an inch in. That way my paper the cover can head out a little bit more. So I'm going to go just 1/8 over from the edge there. And you might have to go over it a couple times to make sure you get a good crease. I'm going to do the same thing over here. because that lamination sticks out a little bit, I just want to make sure that I'm going to be able to cover the pages in the book. So 4.5, one whole notch over from that, and that will give us about a 1/2 inch spine, 1/4 to a 1/2, depending on how much overlap you had from your laminating sheet. And you've got a nice crisp fold there, and that's going to be plenty of room for our pages inside. So while we're at it with the scoring board, we want to score our papers, and this is going to take a little while. We might be able to do a couple at a time. I'm going to try that. Obviously, I like to save time, and if you get frustrated with that and you just want to fold everything in half, you can. So this is going to be 4.5. If you want, you can even take like a Sharpie, and you could even mark the 4.5 if you think you're going to be afraid. If you're afraid you're going to mess it up, and then just nest all your pages together. So if you don't want to bother using a scoring board, maybe you don't have one, you can always fold it in half. Just fold one sheet at a time, and then score it with a butter knife or a bone folder, and then you just nest all these in together when you're done. So I'm going to do that with all these papers and catch you right back here. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is construct our book. So I have folded a bunch of papers together, and since I had a couple really thick stacks, I just made 2 signatures, and a signature is simply a stack of papers. If your paper's thinner, you can have more. If it's thicker, you probably want to have less. And then I am stacking them together and making sure they're nice and tight, and I am going to clip them. Just with a few clips. These are just from the dollar store. You can use binder clips, paper clips, whatever you happen to have. Alright, you just want to make sure those spines are going to be lined up. Okay, you could probably even hold them if the paper's not too unwieldy. Now I'm using this long reach punch, and what I'm doing is I am going into the 2-inch mark. So I've got that spine 2 inches in. You could probably do this with a regular Crop-A-Dile. You just would have to punch a little closer to the edge. It doesn't really matter. You could even do this with like an awl if you didn't have a heavy-duty punch. That's what a lot of bookbinders would use. And of course, you've got to match the amount of paper that you're using to the punch that you're using. You can't use something really flimsy on this, or you're not going to be able to punch through it. You'll need to do fewer sheets at a time, which is totally doable. Okay, and I've already punched the other signature. I'm just going to set that aside. And now I think I also want to be able to connect everything with one piece of thread here, one piece of cording. So I'm going to go in here 2 inches from the edge, and I'm just going to try to kind of line it up here. And you know, there's lots of different ways that you can bind a book. So, you know, use whatever method you like the best. I just like this because it's quick and easy, and it's a great way to make these little notepads and bullet journals, because as you fill them up, you can make more, make them as gifts. It's a lot of fun. So I just eyeballed that. You could put eyelets in there if you wanted to fancy it up a little bit. I'm going to check first to make sure my cord fits through my eyelet before I set it in there, in case it doesn't. It just fits. Okay, so hopefully we'll be all set. And this punch happens to be an eyelet setter as well. Now the nice thing about an eyelet is it's going to protect the cord from getting ripped, and it's also going to protect the laminated paper from getting torn. So you get kind of two bangs for your buck. I just need to find the right setter for the job here. This is a case of the old tools working better than the new tools. I just used this hammer and eyelet setter that I've had for years from making memories, and it worked great. So basically what you do is you set your, and these will punch the holes too. If you don't have this, you totally can use one of these little eyelet setters and a hammer. It works just fine. It's just really loud, so I don't use them very often. But so you set that on top of the eyelet and you give it a few whacks, and it just splays open the end of the eyelet so that you'll be able to have a nice finished look on the outside. So when in doubt, go for the old tools because they're probably going to work just as well. So now what you're going to do is secure your pages together, and I'm using the satin cord, and I burnt the end of the cord so it wouldn't fray, and I am simply going to weave, actually I'm going to weave back to front here. It's been a while since I've done this. I'm going to go through the spine, come through the center, go back through that hole, the opposite side hole, and I'm going to make sure I feed some extra cord through there because I'm going to want to connect this with the other booklet. Now, you don't have to do it this way. This is just how I'm going to choose to do it, and I'm going to tie right here at this edge. And I'm just going to do just like a double knot or a square knot, whatever secure knot you want to do. And I don't know my knots very well. And then I'm going to grab this little signature over here. Hopefully our pages are still lined up really well. And this time I am going to go through the outside, through the spine, into the inside, and I'm going to go out to the other side. And you could do this for as many pages as you wanted to. And I just want to make sure I pull that up nice and snug. And I think I'm actually going to secure this to this end so I don't have a wobbly, spine here. I don't like to make anything too tight when I'm bookbinding though, just in case there's some wear. I like it to have a little bit of give there. Okay, so now I'm going to cut this with extra. I want to make sure that I'm not going to run loose because you can't grow more string there. And I'm just going to give this a quick little burn, just right in the clear part of the flame, and let it cool. And then we'll be able to thread this onto the cover. And we do have some uneven pages because of how the inside of the spine, the inside of the signature sticks out more. And I'm going to show you how to deal with that in just a second. But first, let's construct this. So I'm going to go through our cover here with each thread. Okay, and this should give us a really nice secure foundation. And then I actually like to leave these ends kind of long so that you can wrap it around and tie it around the booklet if you want to. I was going to use elastic cord, but then I thought that it might not hold up very well because the elastic cord I had was kind of thin, but if you had a thick elastic cord I think it would be just fine. And it helps if you had an extra hand to hold that tight for you while you're tightening the cord, but that will do. And there we have a nice compact booklet. But like I mentioned, some of the pages are going to stick out, but that's not a problem because what we can do is use a ruler and an X-Acto knife to flush up the pages. And I find that if I'm making like a sketchbook, I have to do this. So what I'm going to do is actually pull back the cover because I don't want to cut through the cover by mistake. And just fold that back. And you want a steel ruler because a steel ruler is going to is not going to get cut by your knife. And I'm just going to line this up to the to this first sheet because that sheet is going to be the shortest one, and that's what I want to measure and cut all the other sheets to. Just make sure your sheets are fairly secure together, which they should be from the binding. And then just use a regular old craft knife and you're going to slice, and it's going to take you several passes because, you know, see, you go through 5 layers there. Just try not to shift your ruler, and you're going to go through all of your sheets. And there you've got a nice flush booklet there. Oops, got a couple little stragglers. And snip those with the scissors here. And then what you're going to do, you'll do the same exact thing to this side, but then what you can do is actually round all your corners while you're at it. And like I said, if you have this corner rounder here, this corner chomper, it makes the job pretty easy because it can take multiple sheets at a time. So that's what I'm going to do on the other end of this, the other side of this signature, and then I'm going to trim the other pages on the other signature, and then we can attach our charms if we want to, and we're going to be all done. So I ended up with some nice long strings that I can embellish. So what I'm going to do is just put on, I think I'll do a couple beads and a charm on one, our little handmade embellishment. And if you decide you don't like these after a while, you don't have to keep them. I mean, there's no rule. Something I like about the paper beads, I do have a video on how I made them. They're very easy. I can actually tuck the thread back into the beads and glue them if I don't want to have a loose bit of string hanging out, but we did burn the end, so it doesn't matter. We don't have to do that. That's optional. And you might decide you don't like to have the anything dangling on your planner, but the nice thing about it is that if you want to tie it up, it will stay tied in your purse, or if you want to tuck it into your planner like I'm going to, it just makes it a little bit more versatile. And I also want to show you the little clips that we made. These are great. So like if you're doing a bullet journal and you've got maybe a section where you have your monthly planner, and then maybe you have a section for things you need to pick up when you're at the store, then maybe you have a section for other lists. It doesn't matter. It's however you like to sort it. You've got these cute little flower clips that you can put in there as well, and it's just cheerful and springy and really nice. And I think that after you've tied this, let's just tie it up and see. You might want to shorten the strings. That's completely up to you. You could actually just slip a little pen on the string there, just slide a little pen in there, or you can even make a little pouch or pocket in there to go in there if you want to. But I think that this is really adorable and just a fun project that you can do with probably supplies you have at home anyway. Please check out our sponsor, Graphic Stock. That's where I got the clip art here for this cover. They have so many different designs for your different DIY projects. I'll have a link in the video description so that you can sign up for 7 days free. You can keep everything that you download in those 7 days, see if you like it, and if it's something that you think you'd use a lot, then do nothing, and then you can just continue on subscribing. If it's not your cup of tea, then you can cancel and own nothing, and that is really great too. So 7-day free trial linked up in the video description. Thank you so much for watching. Please give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this project, and let me know in the comments below if you plan on making something like this. I think it's a lot of fun, and they'd make really cute gifts too. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, happy crafting, and of course, we got to see if this fits in my pocket or my planner. I hope it does. I've got a checkbook in there too, so I'll probably have to take the checkbook out. Let's just see. Does it fit? It fits. It fits in my planner. Awesome. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, happy crafting.